Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, your host for Recording Studio Rockstars, coming to you from the Toy Box Studio, the sound of East Nashville. This show is here to introduce you to real-world recording professionals to hear their stories and learn from their experiences so that you can take your recordings to the next level and become a rock star of the recording studio yourself. Today's guest is Björgvin Benediktsson, a songwriter, producer, engineer, and blogger about music making and recording. An alumni of the SAE Institute, he has been writing about music production since 2008, bringing you insight into everything he has learned along the way. I was first introduced to Björgvin through the proaudiofiles.com, where I could find articles linking back to his own site, audioissues.com. Here he creates content to teach you more about the whole recording process from songwriting to mastered production. You can find more on his blog, YouTube channel, and patreon.com page. And of course, I'll include links in the show notes. Björgvin gives audio enthusiasts a solid and easy understanding of the various aspects of producing music through easy-to-use, practical production tips and in-depth training products. He provides everything you need to know when it comes to producing your own music in your home recording studio. I'm excited to have Björgvin joining us on Recording Studio Rockstars. Björgvin, my man, are you ready to rock?
I am always ready to rock.
Dude, I had a feeling about you that you were always ready to rock.
Yeah, I'm always on, that's for sure.
Welcome to the show, man. This is not the first time we've...
No, thanks for having me back.
...spoken on a podcast. Last time, of course, it was the Toy Box Studio show.
Yep.
But I'm psyched to have you now on the launch of Recording Studio Rockstars, where we get to really specifically speak to our audience of rock stars, people who are learning to become a rock star of the recording studio, people who want to learn more about recording, production, making music in the studio.
Yeah, this is great. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, so I have given our listeners a little bit of an introduction to you. Can you follow up in your own words? Tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to be here.
Yeah, well, I think you did a pretty good job. I don't really know what to add there. Well, like you said, I do mostly music for a living, audio, a lot of it. Write songs and perform live a lot too. I'm graduating into being more of a songwriter / musician than an audio engineer, but I kind of try to tread the line there. And I produce all my own music too with my band, and I work from my home studio and sometimes from a studio downtown here in Tucson. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm originally from Iceland, and I've lived in the U.S. for about 5 years now.
That's a lot of exotic places. I know you were also over in Europe, I remember, right?
Yeah, I graduated from the SAE Institute in Madrid. So I lived in Spain when I went to audio engineering school. So my wife really wants me to dive into the Spanish-speaking market here in Tucson, which there are many Hispanic people or musicians that might benefit from me being able to speak Spanish. So I might want to dive into that. Just make Latin music for a living.
That sounds really cool, man. I like that idea.
Yeah, weird white European making Mexican mariachi.
Well, let's talk about that for a sec, because I've always been a fan of a lot of the music that I've heard from south of the border. You have, and I don't know what all the differences are, but I know norteño is a style, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there was a band that I got to record once down at my hay bale studio at Bonnaroo called the Nortec Collective.
Okay.
And so it was a group of guys from LA that would do norteño music mixed with electronica. So it was like, and apparently that's a huge thing down there. They talked about doing festivals and playing in front of 150,000 people.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's, well, you're making me very excited to test the waters on this idea of my wife's.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I mean, there may be a bunch of people that would really, really love to sort of bring electronic music together with, traditional Mexican music or Latin music.
Yeah.
I apologize to anybody if I'm butchering terminology here.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, so tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days. I know I mentioned Audio Issues. That's your site where you really help people out with their recording. I remember you're also part of Crowd Audio.
Yep. Crowd Audio. So I do. I guess I do three things mostly. I write about audio and tips and tricks on audio issues, and I'm currently working on a new course that's called Mixing with 5 Plugins, and I'm just going to mix a song using EQ, compression, reverb, delay, and saturation, and just kind of show some basic guidelines on how to use all those things. And I'm currently on the compression video that I really should finish today, but I know I won't be able to. And on Crowd Audio, I do very similar things. I run the Playground, which is kind of a training area for engineers where once a month we have a multi-track that everybody mixes and puts up their version of it. And the Playground every month is usually sponsored by a company. This time it was sponsored by FabFilter. So the winner of that competition will get the FabFilter mixing bundle. And I can highly recommend FabFilter. Actually, I use the Pro Q on almost everything, and I'm using the Pro Q and Pro C on the Mixing with 5 Plugins course because they're so easy to demonstrate from a tutorial perspective. And so I work with Mike Senior, who is the author of Recording Secrets for the Small Studio and then Mixing Secrets from the Small Studio, if you've heard of those. He's an English guy that's... He's really fun to work with, and we have a feedback and Q&A session every month for our premium members where we answer questions and give feedback on their mixes. So that's
very
a lot
cool.
of fun too.
Does he ever say that a mix is brilliant? Does he ever say anything like that?
He is very English.
I love it, man.
It's great. It's great to work with him. Yeah,
I'm going to have to check that out. Looking forward to it.
Oh, and then the third thing, I'm just starting pre-production of my band's debut album. We've done an EP and we've done some singles before, but we decided that we really need to grow up and be an actual band with an actual album, so we decided to kind of dive into that. Yesterday I finished scratch tracks on 9 songs. It'll be an 11-song album. We've done 2 songs already that are going to make the album, and so yesterday we were in the studio the whole day just recording acoustic guitar and vocals for the drummer to listen to before we do the foundation.
You didn't want to stop there and just call it 2 songs from Tucson?
No, but now I wish I had. I just ordered 100 copies of a single plus EP that we're going to sell at shows, and I definitely should have called it that.
Well, maybe not. It's hard to say.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. I mean, we're really looking forward to making this album, and it'll be a very interesting thing to do with the band.
Yeah, well, so I've been paying attention to what you're up to and following your stuff, and I've definitely gotten a sense that you're really having a good time producing your own music and writing and working with your band and kind of opening up that process to the world so that people can learn from it at the same time. You did introduce something that I thought was really innovative and a great idea, which was you stepped into the Patreon.com world. Would you like to talk about that at all, about what that was all about? I can do that.
So what we were doing, and that's kind of where my being in the band and being an engineer kind of overlap, because I wanted to give both fans and the audience that I have through Audio Issues and Crowd Audio an insight into our process of making our music. So the 2 songs I talked about earlier, we try to do weekly videos where we show from start to finish what we do to create a song. So how we recorded the drums, to what we did on the bass, to how we recorded the acoustic guitars for this particular song. Like one song, I recorded all the vocals with just dynamic microphones because I just wanted to try it. It was just an experiment. One of the songs I recorded an acoustic guitar that was reamped through an acoustic guitar amp, and then that was mixed together in the mix. So it kind of allows me to experiment in the studio while creating content, video content for the band using our songs. So it kind of, I don't know, I guess it hits a lot of birds with one stone.
Well, that's cool, man. I've heard stories that Rick Rubin likes to do that. I think I heard a story about the Red Hot Chili Peppers record Blood Sugar Sex Magic that maybe all they used was SM57s on the whole drum kit.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great idea.
Right. That's the sort of thing that was interesting to me, to kind of give myself some limitations so that you would commit to things so that things would actually get done, which is also a problem in the recording industry with like a million different ways to make a song or comp a vocal or whatever. So it kind of lets me put things out there and kind of be unafraid to just put things on video. If people don't like it, that's fine, but this is what we did and I'm sort of sticking to it. I'll do it better next time, but at least I put that out there. Because you can practice in the studio, you can make like a million half-done songs, but they are really nothing if you think about it. If they're not out there, then you just wasted your time.
Well, you might have been rehearsing or learning something, but it's true.
Yeah.
They're not finished and nobody ever heard them. And I'd say that same thing goes for takes. We live in a world of 100 takes of an instrument in Pro Tools and whatever DAW you're using. And a good reminder to any one of us is, as soon as all you have to do is pick one, because there's only room for one on the record.
Yeah.
And then none of the rest of them, you can let go of all of them because they never exist, because nobody will ever know what the second take and the third and the 50th take sounded like. Nobody else is ever going to be thinking about those other takes like you might be when you're in the process of recording and you're deliberating over which take to use.
Right. It reminds me of a story when Steely Dan recorded Reeling in the Years. And that, if people don't know the title of that song, they will know the song if they just go on Spotify and find it. But the guitar player, the session player, he played one take throughout that whole song, and they say that was a really, really great take, but the assistant forgot to hit record on it, so nobody knows what that sounded like, even though they were in the room and thought that was like a great take and that would have made the album. But then they had to do it again because somebody had to actually remember to hit record, and then now that's on the album and that's on the song, and that song is legendary. It's played on the radio. I don't know how much royalties they get just from that song that they also dislike as Steely Dan, but it's a great hit, and it just goes to show that the audience is just going to know what's on the record, not all the comp folders that you have in your session.
Yeah, true enough. And I don't remember if it was that song as well, but I remember hearing a story about the drummer coming in and just being so hungover and sitting down and nailing the entire song in one take too. Maybe it was that one. Maybe that's why the engineer forgot to hit record, because he was out with the drummer the night before. It's possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, for
cool,
sure.
Man. Well, so let's see. You've got your stuff you're working on your site. There, I know that there's recently you've been doing a lot of talking about the home mastering. Would you want to talk a little bit about that with Ian Shepherd? I think it is, right?
Yeah, so Ian Shepherd has a great mastering course, the Home Mastering Masterclass, that he opens up every once in a while. I think it's 3 to 4 times a year. And it's an 8-week course, and it's I took it the first time through, and I learned a lot, and he's just a really, really great teacher, and easy to learn from him, and especially because of the way the course is set up. He tackles a lot of different ways to master and in a lot of different genres. So you kind of get this overall mastering course. And we sat down together, and I sent him one of my masters, and I made him a video of what my thought process when I was mastering it. And then we kind of compared notes, and he gave me some pointers and stuff like that. So I have that on my YouTube channel. And then I have a bunch of other mastering articles and interviews with Ian as well about mastering in general and about EQ and compression and that sort of stuff. So if you just find the mastering category on my site, there's plenty of info there.
Cool, man. I love that. I've actually begun doing more mastering myself. Actually, I think I was always mastering. I just never called it that. You know, any of us who have recorded our own music or just sort of created our own CDs probably go through at some point a process of just sort of putting finishing touches on it, trying to make sure it's loud enough, sounds great, all that. Yeah. And as that evolved for me, I had done that on a number of my own band's records until I finally got to a point where I just said, you know what? I mean, I know I'm surrounded by mastering engineers that are brilliant at what they do. I mean, I know guys, I've got them on speed dial that I can call that can do a far better job than myself. But there are so many opportunities for me to do it myself. And sometimes I have a client who just simply has no budget, and it would almost be insulting to call. It wouldn't almost be. It would be insulting to call up the mastering engineers I know and see if they would master for that low budget. But I might be able to do something sort of quick and dirty with it myself. And there's just a lot of stuff you can do. It's cool. I'm doing it also a lot now for my stereo sessions program. So I'll do live to 2-track mixes.
Oh, wow.
And then I master those afterwards to go with the videos. And the thing that I'm really struck by, because I always think of mastering for myself, maybe it's an untrained perspective on it, but I think of it as an extension of the mix process.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid to treat mastering as a way to step in and just sort of change the sound a little bit if it needs a little bit of help. Right. Really try and bring things out that might not have been in there.
I like the mastering engineer as not just he's the person that makes it louder or makes it whatever. It's also a second set of ears that can give you like an objective. Well, the kick drum is a little like fluffy here. Is that something you were trying to do, or that's what I'm hearing on my different speakers and obviously with my different ears? So it's kind of like that. You kind of get the additional feedback from, a professional as well that people don't necessarily think about all the time.
Yeah, and I think for somebody who's making their own record, learning how to master it afterwards at the end of their process, they may not realize that there's, how much room there still is to take the songs to another level, Exactly. You can work so hard on the mixes, not realizing that when you're done, you do a little bit more to it, and it's like, wow, I didn't know it could do that.
Right. Which is why I'm not going to master my record. I will record and probably mix most of it, but I'm gonna give it I'll probably give it to Ian, actually.
Yeah, well, I was gonna guess that you probably have Ian's number on speed dial anyway.
I can contact him if need be.
Does anybody actually use speed dial anymore?
I have 3 people in my iPhone. When you hit that button, that's like favorites.
Right,
favorites. I guess that's basically speed dial in smartphone terminology, right?
Yeah.
And I have like 4 people there, and the only person I really use it for is my wife.
Well, I don't know if our listeners, our rock stars out there, if anybody's going to be young enough to not know what a flip phone is. But yeah, so you used to just flip open your phone and you just pick the number 5 and just hold it, long hold it, and that would speed dial a number directly.
Exactly.
So, speed dialing your way to a finished record, a mix and a master. What's the next thing we want to talk about? I think I'm going to jump into some of the sort of the bigger questions for you right here, if you're cool with that, Bjorg.
Yeah,
unless there's anything
absolutely.
that you've got going on right now that we didn't mention yet that we want to make sure we talk about.
I think that's more or less it. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And so yeah, I think that those are like the biggest things. I realized that I played live 28 times in the last year. So
nice, man.
That's like every other week. That's more than every other week. But I can't really talk about that from an engineering standpoint. So, but it was big for me.
No, that's exciting, and big for me that's the kind of statement that we all want to be making anyway. Because that's all that ever matters. It doesn't matter what stage you're at. There's somebody who's got more experience who can impress you, and there's somebody that you can probably impress who has less experience. So whatever you're doing, whatever stage you're at, whether it's recording, doing music, the important stuff is finding those things that feel like you've taken your own process to the next level.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as always trying to be in the middle, being able to give what I know to people that don't know more while still continually striving to improve.
Nice, man. It almost sounds like you might have thought that through before and memorized that line.
I have a whiteboard that always says improve on it. I just never erase that.
Good call. I have an email thing that comes in automatically every day, and it just reminds me to be thankful.
All right. Yeah, exactly.
So, groovy, man. I don't know if you have one off the top of your head, but sometimes I like to ask if you have an inspirational quote for making music.
For making music, I guess this would fit for making music. I'll paraphrase a little bit, and I'll paraphrase Robert Frost.
Nice.
And say, take the road less traveled because it will make all the difference. And I guess what I mean by that is that I feel like people should forge their own paths and do their own thing, even if it's a little different. For instance, I'm extremely focused and goal-oriented, and a lot of people that I work with are not. And it's hard for me when people aren't, but because that's the path I chose, it actually does help me every once in a while to work with them. It needs that contrast, keeps everybody together.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Maybe not if you're under 12 and your child by yourself or something, but we're mostly speaking to teenagers and older here. So yeah, no, I think that following the path less traveled is all about, it's about saying, what is that really about? It's kind of about saying, don't just follow what everybody's doing.
Exactly.
But I think sometimes the key to that is not just do something different than what everybody else is doing, but it's do what you're doing, like figure out what it is that's totally you. Because I was actually just talking to Joe Gilder about this, the concept that, what you bring is the most valuable gift that you have to give is yourself,
Right. Yep, exactly. I mean, it's not about going upstream or always going against the flow. It's more knowing when you should deviate.
Yeah. Well, they got a lot of movies about it. Isn't there some movie series called The Deviants now? Or something? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. The Divergence.
The Divergence. There you go.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So Björgvin, now share with us an important time in your life that was a failure or a setback that maybe became a really great learning experience for you.
All right. One of the things we did when we recorded our latest single, it's called Perfect Pocket. So we recorded it originally before we had gigged it a lot of times. And, as you know, if you're in a band, that if you play songs a lot, they tend to sort of change a little bit. They either speed up or slow down and whatnot. And when we recorded Perfect Pocket and the drums originally, it was way slower than we actually wanted to record it. So when I listened back to the drums, I was like, no way, this is way too slow. I can't, what am I supposed to do here? And I thought, well, we just have to re-record the whole thing or do something. And then actually by accident, it was in 44.1 sample rate. And so I hit the 48K button. And if in case you don't know sample rates, whoever's listening is like, that'll speed up everything, right? It'll make the vocals sound like chipmunks and the guitars sound pitched up, I guess maybe a step or so.
Yeah.
But that speed was perfect. So the drums weren't necessarily pitched that much, and they didn't sound bad in any way. But I had to edit them. And because they didn't really fit the arrangement anymore. So I edited them, and then I recorded the guitar and vocals and everything with those drums. But then Ty, my drummer, wanted to re-record the drums because of the same reason. The song had become more of a country rock song. So he wanted to re-record the drums. And even though we needed to re-record everything really again, well, at least the drums, it was totally worth it. And because it was worth it in the long run. So I guess letting things go and thinking things will be fine works most of the time. But sometimes you need to step back and say, do I have to bite the bullet and do the work again? And if you think you really, really, really have to, it will be worth it, and you will have something you're prouder of to show for it. Because if we would have just released the song with the drums that I had kind of edited together, it wouldn't have had the same punchiness, it wouldn't have had the same excitement, and it wouldn't have been as good of a song, and that would have only been because I was a little lazy. So I think laziness has its place, but if it's gonna really impact a project of yours, you should really put that on the back burner and actually go for it.
Well, you put a real human being back on the recording, right?
Right.
Put a real human communication. He played the drums all the way through that way.
Right.
I recently had a client that came in and he had songs that he was calling demos, and they had been composed, I think, in Logic. So using a lot of, I don't remember what drum plugin it was, but the drums sounded great. I mean, it really sounded quite good. And when I heard it, I thought to myself, I was like, geez, how are we going to How are we going to do that? It's so funny that I've been doing this for years and years, and I still have that feeling every time somebody brings something in. I have this initial nervousness that how am I going to make something sound better than that? Because that already sounds good to me, which maybe is just a response to a good song too. But, we did it, and we mic'd up the drums in the dead room and replaced them all, and it totally transformed the track. It sounded fantastic when it was done because it was that real drums being played really well.
Right.
And it just breathed a life into the song that the programmed drums didn't have initially.
Right.
So, yeah, sort of a tangent on that, but same idea.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just people forget that there's humans that need to make music. You can't have robots do it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think about that because I'm a big fan of electronic dance music too. But I think that dance music is about a communication between the DJ and a big crowd of people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the music really great when it is really great.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about a success moment for you in recording, a time where you felt like you sort of had a hit moment.
Yeah. One of the general success that's not necessarily one moment is just when I spend the time to get a great, basically instrument sounding great at the source. Because once you listen back to something that you recorded and it's really well recorded, you just think you're an awesome engineer. And then one of the stories, and I don't think I told this story last time on the Toy Box podcast, but I went down. It was last year. I went down to Mexico and recorded a friend of mine's band, and we did 9 songs in 5 hours. And I thought that was pretty successful to crank that stuff out because we did it all live. And I think the reason that was so successful is because of all the prep work we did before that. We spent 2 days making test recordings and prepping everything before we hit record, and everybody had to play the songs through.
Yeah, absolutely. Being prepared. Mm-hmm. Preparedness is key.
Yep.
That's why I have a printout of questions in front of me.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, like being rehearsed when you go into the studio is a really powerful way to make a record.
I know
there are all sorts of ways, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy that people think that they can come in and just give a sloppy, uninspired performance and then just have somebody work it. I mean, I'd rather you just reschedule a couple of days later and come in and have something that's really ready.
Yeah, I mean, the joke about the engineer in the days of DAWs is the band's out there performing, and then he gets on the talk and he's like, "That sounds terrible. Come on in." as in like, cool, we're done. We'll just fix it later.
Exactly.
But a great example of what you just talked about that I took away from the VH1 classic album series. They did a documentary on the making of Dark Side of the Moon with Pink
I've seen
Floyd.
that one.
And one of the things that they said, because that was a 16-track record, and I think they had the drums on a reel of tape first, and they bounced it down to 4 tracks. And so there wasn't a lot of room for doing lots of takes and lots of everything else. But what was key is that they talked about the process of pre-production and writing for that album. They had already written the songs by the time they went into the studio, and they had toured them for 3 months.
Right.
And they said this was at a time when bootlegging was not really an issue for them.
Right.
So you could get away with playing the songs live in front of crowds, and it wouldn't give away the content that was coming because nobody was really recording it and sharing it.
Right.
And I just thought that was really cool. They already had figured out how to play all these songs. So when they went into the studio, all they had to do was figure out the rest of it, how to make the most amazing record ever made.
Yeah,
it's no small task there, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if, like, in hindsight, and I'm obviously not dissing Pink Floyd in any way. That's one of my favorite bands growing up. It's like one of the vinyls I found in my dad's collection. But I don't know if they necessarily thought that they were making that record.
Yeah.
They're probably just as, I think everybody's a little insecure and neurotic. So,
not those guys. That's not a band that ever had any internal conflict.
Right. So, if you want to put yourself in their mindset of, it's the 70s. You're in a really great big band, and you probably have confidence because of that for sure. But I would think that once you're in the studio and you're trying to make something really, really cool, I don't think they're thinking this is going to be like the biggest selling album of all time, because I think that if they knew that being in the studio, that would have probably destroyed all of their confidence trying to put something down on tape.
They would have frozen.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody would have gotten a tummy ache.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So next up, man, tell us something that you're just really excited about right now in recording or in your business and the stuff you're doing.
So, and I guess this is going to be the theme of the show here, is that I'm actually most excited about pre-production right now.
Nice.
Because it's and like you were saying with Pink Floyd, is that we've been playing some of the songs that are going to go on this record for years, and we know exactly we definitely know the arrangement and the song structure, and now it's just going to go. It's going to be pre-production is relatively easy because of that, because we know all the arrangement. There's like one new song that doesn't have it completely nailed out, but I think that's also exciting in a certain way. It still has song structure, but we might move things around after we record the foundations. I think it's just fun to have pre-production be a little easy because of the knowledge of the songs, because then you can spend the pre-production time more on the bells and whistles and what you want to put on the record. Because, for instance, I have a song that I just keep hearing brass on, and I need a brass band to come in, or a trumpet and a saxophone player to come in and just do some brass stabs every once in a while in that song. I just completely hear that in there.
Dude, my daughter, she's taking music lessons now. She just selected trumpet for the fall. So I don't know how long you guys can wait, but she's getting ready to learn how to play that.
Cool. Yeah, but like that's the thing I'm excited about now, is because we have these songs picked out and we sort of know what the bare bones of it are going to sound like. So that kind of frees us up to think big. Think what we're like, how can we make this a bigger thing? What can we do to make it more exciting or more interesting to the listener?
Yeah. Well, so I remember making a record with my band years ago, and we had been playing the songs all summer long and had already toured them, going to the Boston and New York. We were a band out of St. Louis.
Okay.
And so we were back, and a buddy was taking a recording course at Webster University in St. Louis. And so he brought us in for his project to record the record, and we had like 2 weeks blocked out or something every day in there, which was great. Mm-hmm. And it was 16 track. So I remember going and meeting with the band, and this whole process of bringing a chart and a sheet to the table, and we're all sitting around, and I'm trying to like pre-plan what overdub is going to go on every track of 16 tracks on every song, the whole record.
Yeah.
And it was a blast, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's and going back to we were talking about earlier, is that I do music and audio all day, and it's just it hit me a few months ago that I woke up one morning and I just realized that like I wake up every day and do whatever I want, and I just love doing music, and I'm just very thankful for the fact that I can just do music full time.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. I love it too, and I'm grateful every day for being able to do this.
Yeah.
Hi, I hope you are enjoying hearing from today's featured rock star. We are just about to head into the jam session, and I want to let you know that all the cool stuff we talk about will all be available in the show notes for this episode. If you would like me to send it directly to you, all you need to do is text jam session to 33444, and I'll send you free content including the show notes. Again, that's jam session to 33444, and I'll send you free content including the show notes. Cheers. All right, so let's take us finally here into the jam session. So I'm going to sort of do a series of questions, and you can give sort of short answers or elaborate if you feel like it. What was holding you back from getting started with music or with your business?
Fear of thinking that I'm not good enough.
Very interesting. You're the only person in the world who's ever felt that way.
Yeah, that's complete. And I I might look like I have a lot of confidence, but when I'm alone in the room thinking what I should do next, it's always there's always a little tinge of what if this isn't good enough.
Yeah. Well, so how do you get past something like that?
I just keep putting things out there that might not be good enough, and if they're not good enough, I'll improve upon them.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. I've heard other people talk about the process of the importance of getting those ideas out, especially the ones that you think maybe aren't good enough, because it's the getting those ideas out, whether you're writing them or recording them or just jotting them into your Google Doc or your Evernote or whatever your process is, or on a piece of paper, because when you get those ideas out, it makes room for the good ones to arrive.
Yeah, write everything down. If you get an idea for, it can be a song or like a thing you think could work on a song you're working on or recording or whatever, just write it down. I use Wunderlist, and I have multiple lists within that all have, I have song title lists, I have an audio issues idea list, I have, I have a list of karaoke songs I might sing next.
That's great. Do you have a list to keep track of your lists? I find myself making those sometimes. Right. All right. Well, so if you can remember something off the top of your head, what was some of the best advice you ever received about recording?
I didn't receive it directly, but I read Steve Albini giving this piece of advice: is just read everything you can about it.
That's great. I actually got that same advice from one of my mentors here in Nashville, Brad Jones. He once talked about just picking up books and reading about engineering, and I was like, really? You sort of study what you do? You mean you don't just? I don't know.
Yeah, I have I have bookshelves full of music and audiobooks that I keep to reference and to reread and to give away when people need something that to help them, stuff
That's
like
cool.
that.
Will you send us a photo of your bookshelf full of books for the show notes of the podcast?
I can.
That would be cool, man. I could dig that.
Yeah. But one shelf might be full of books about audio, but then if I take the picture correctly, the second shelf is going to be full of comic books, though.
Wow, that's cool too. I think that's important. That's part of the road less traveled, right? It's be yourself.
Yeah.
I would imagine that your influence of comics has infiltrated your music making one way or another.
Yeah. It's I'm actually driving to Comiccon San Diego tonight.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, so right after my show. So
well,
there's playing live tonight and then driving down there after.
Oh, that's exciting, man. That's wild. There's a band that I just ran into this week is NAMM Week here in Nashville, and there's a band that I ran into that had recorded here when I first started the studio called the Proto-Man, and you might see them out at Comic-Con. That's the kind of place they would go play a show, so keep your eyes peeled.
Sweet.
I think there was all their songs, speaking of comics and sort of like doing your own thing, all their songs came from the story of Mega Man, who I guess, I don't know anything about Mega Man, but I guess he was a comic book hero or a video game guy,
yeah,
right?
Nintendo video game, the old school Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, so their entire band concept is like a rock opera where they're on stage and people are dressed up like robots, and I think the band has 13 members in it.
Nice.
And so they tour in an RV now, but for a while they toured in it was a airport shuttle.
Cool.
So I'm going to try and have those guys onto the Toy Box Studio show later on.
Oh, that would be great.
But that's a whole nother story there. All right, so let's get back on track here. Can you share with us a recording tip, a hack, or a secret sauce that you would like to share from your own experience?
Yeah, my thing is to experiment, and even if you don't have a lot of time to experiment, especially when it comes to recording and trying to get things right at the source, is make sure you can at least compare two things. So try at least two mic positions or two sources, because then you can actually see which one is better. But if you only have one, you can't compare it to anything. It either sounds good or it doesn't. But if you have two, one is always going to sound better than the other. And then if you don't have time to keep going and finding something that's even better than that, you can at least pick the better one of the two.
And what do we do with the one we don't like? Do we keep it around on a playlist all the way up to mastering?
No, no, I mean, like if you're trying to select the right microphone position, you would just pick the one that sounds better and be technical, but think about the music from an artistic perspective.
No, I guess I was joking. I was implying, if the one you're not using, just get rid of it. You don't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is like people not wanting to commit or not wanting to comp the vocal, and because they want to have folders full of things, is that it's just going to get in the way if you don't just throw it away.
Yeah, you're just trying to make a virtual reality for you to live in called your vocal comp forever.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to come back to the real world and finish that vocal and put your record out.
Yeah.
All right, so can you recommend a favorite book? Speaking of books on your shelves, something that you've been really enjoying lately?
Yes, I can, absolutely. I am halfway through the book called Unlocking Creativity by Michael Beinhorn.
Nice.
He is the producer behind Soundgarden's Super Unknown, Whole Celebrity Skin, Red Hot Chili Peppers, a lot of their albums. And one of my favorites is Marilyn Manson's Mechanical Animals.
I was going to reference that myself. I totally know that record, and I heard stories about all that stuff. Michael Beinhorn was somebody that I really admired and followed, pretty closely when I was. Well, it was a particular band I was working with called The Living Things, and just a rock band, just a raw, hard rock band, and we just really loved the Mechanical Animals sound of that record. And in fact, before Living Things, I was producing a band called the Trixo, and it was some of the same members. And when we took that record down to go mix with Tom Lord Alge in Miami, it was Blue Marlin was the hotel, and I forgot the name of the studio. I apologize. But he had mixed Mechanical Animals. And so we got to talk to him about that whole process and hear what it was like and what it was like working with Marilyn Manson and the record, and all that was cool.
Yeah, I met Michael last year at the Potluck audio conference that was in Tucson.
Oh, cool.
And I got he's such a great guy to talk to. You can just see that like his love for music he has this aura around him. That just yells, "I love music," basically.
That's awesome. That's great, man. Well, what a great suggestion. I'm going to go read that myself.
Yeah, because it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's great. It's a great book because it's such a different perspective on making records. There is nothing really technical about this book. He just goes into the mentalities, methods for reaching musicians, getting good performances, the humanist. There's a chapter on like meditation and relaxation in that book.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. I highly, highly recommend it.
That's awesome. Very exciting. All right, so next question. Share with us a favorite hardware tool for the studio, something that you've been enjoying using. It could be anything from a tuner to a metronome to some favorite piece of studio gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just recently realized that the AKG 414 sounds pretty good on my vocalist, on my singer in the band, Liz. And I've always had trouble mixing her sometimes because it seems that a lot of mics tend to accent that 1K area, which makes her sound a little nasally sometimes.
Yeah.
And the 414 has like a frequency dip exactly where I keep having problems. And I put her in front of that mic yesterday and we did the scratch tracks and she just sounded great. So that's my current favorite. Yeah.
Do you remember which particular model of the 414 it is?
Oh, it's the one that's it's silver and gray, not the like gold one. I'm not entirely sure which. It's like XLS or something like that, right?
Yeah, I have an older 414 too. It's like a BULS or something like that.
Yeah.
But same thing. I've been through that where it just smoothed out a female singer's voice and the vocal track in a way that the other mics couldn't handle.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great choice. Yeah, very good. Very good. So, how about a favorite software tool? Excuse me. How about a favorite software tool for the studio?
I think I just really like Logic, but I also just got the API Vision channel strip from Universal Audio, and I really like using it. I haven't used it as much as I want to, but I just recently got it, so that's my current favorite, and I'm very excited about using it to instead of just plugging things straight in to a preamp on my digital interface and then just recording in, I can use that to, if I want to record with a little compression on the way in,
yeah,
and
to process
like
it,
high pass filters, and then maybe some EQ if I need it. So I'm looking forward to kind of using my UAD console as like an old school console that I can tweak a little bit on the way in. So
yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm sort of familiar with that using real outboard gear here in the studio,
right?
And it's great. It's great to be able to get your sound again and be able to commit to it. So if you have a situation where you can use a software tool like that and feel, find a place where you can feel confident and you can feel settled in and know what kind of sound you're making and commit to it, I think it's going to make your whole process much easier to complete the record.
Right.
All right. So let's see. Next up, how about a great resource that you have found for the business part of recording music?
I think I'll just go back to the Wunderlist. I really like using that to keep track of things. And then I use my iCal app or my iCal calendar in my MacBook. It's like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. Right.
Like this interview would not be taking place if it wasn't iCal.
I know that. It's remarkable that it's taking place at all, isn't it? So what about, let's say, for the band member part or like the engineer part of you, how does something like Wunderlist get used?
I guess because maybe not necessarily that much for recording, but it will enable me if I get like an idea for maybe a part or something to overdub or some production element that I want to basically put in the back of my mind, I can at least write that down in a list that is, production ideas and such. And I also actually, now that I think of it and now that I hit Command Tab on to see what I actually have open, I use Xmind a lot.
And I don't know that one.
It's a mind mapping tool. And if you're familiar with mind maps, it's a really great way to visualize big projects. And so, like I think I have a few mind maps here open, but the long wait one just kind of stands open here, and then it's like one tree is, if we're going to do crowdfunding, one tree is the venues we can play at, one tree is merch, and then if I open up another one, it's going to be like the course. So if I'm trying to make the product, this mixing video course, and I can basically visualize the complete video project before I even start it.
Oh, that's great, man. That's smart. And I'm almost guessing that you could probably even visualize connecting your whole studio together using a mind map. As pieces of gear all hooked up.
I didn't even think of that, but absolutely. And actually, that's funny. Funny you should say that, because I have a mind map somewhere on my website from that recording session I did in Mexico last year. On the plane on the way down to Mexico, I created a mind map of what gear we had to use, or what gear we had, and how many inputs we had, and how many compressors or what preamps we had, and I tried to put that all together so that when I got there, I knew exactly what I was going to use on the bass. I knew exactly what was going on the trumpets and the sax and the keyboards and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, mind mapping works totally well for the production, especially in pre-production.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I imagine there's a ton of people out there that are trying to, sweating bullets thinking about getting ready for a session when the band's coming in, and knowing where everything's going to go would be a huge help.
Right, exactly.
All right, so let's see. Last question, final wrap-up question here. But if you were dropped into a strange city, and you could only take a simple setup for recording, what would you choose? How would you find people to record, and how would you make ends meet right away so you could continue recording? Just imagine, our listeners, our rock stars, maybe people who are showing up in a new city for the first time, just embarking on this, and they sort of don't know anybody yet, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, the first question, I would probably take a 4 or an 8 input interface, just so that I could have enough things. If I needed to record a singer-songwriter, I could. If I needed to record a full band, I could as well. I would probably find people to record by just going to shows and being out there and networking and meeting people and, knocking on doors at the studios to just meet, not even trying to get an internship or trying to get a job or anything. But what I usually do, because I'm not necessarily, I don't really ask the studio guys around town for jobs, because I have enough on my own plate to support myself. But I like knowing everybody. So what I usually try to do is, whenever there's a new person in town or whenever there's a new studio I haven't gone to, I usually just email them and, try to take them to lunch or see if they want to meet for coffee or something like that. So, knowing people and networking and being, gracious with your knowledge and just being a nice guy to hang out with will pay you dividends in the end.
Yeah, and then I'm going to throw this twist at you, that I threw at Joe Gilder too, which was a question of for some people who maybe don't live in a community where there is a lot of music and other studios, but they still want to get involved. How about doing what you described in the online world? Any tips there?
Yes. And this is probably just stolen from Graham Cochran, and he'd probably give you the best answer if he's going to come on your podcast. You said he was going to.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that
his I'll just steal his answer because I know what he's going to say. Is that just, you need to put up a nice website that just lays out what you have to offer, who you are, and then put up audio examples of what you can do. Pick the best examples you can, even just like snippets of the best mix you've ever done, and then try to have a call to action to get people to either, email you or contact you in any way.
Yep. And a great tool, which we didn't mention yet, for getting your music up and sharing it with the world, of course, would be SoundCloud. Mm-hmm.
SoundCloud, that's especially good for engineers to show off their work, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Björgvin, thanks so much for coming back on the podcast, man, and for joining us here on Recording Studio Rockstars. Just awesome to have you here. We are very honored and grateful to have you joining us, man. And it's a lot of fun to talk to you and goof off too.
Absolutely. It's been great. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you let our listeners, our rock stars, know how they can find out more about you and all the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, the best way is probably just to go to audioissues.com. There's a email list there that I email very regularly out tips and tricks, and then that's the easiest way to kind of follow what I do. I put a lot of my personal life into my emails, and I try to relate them to recording because I am doing that almost every day anyway. You can also follow me on Twitter at audioissues, and then facebook.com/audioissues as well. And then I'm very active at thelongwait.com, and we have a pretty good YouTube channel where I'm probably more active on YouTube through The Long Wait than through Audio Issues, but I still have some things on the Audio Issues channel.
And for our listeners, The Long Wait is your band, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to check out Björgvin's music, go check out The Long Wait, and you can see that whole process of pre-production, being in the studio. Definitely go check out Patreon. If that's a really cool way to get involved and be supportive if you want to, and also keep part of the process.
Yeah, that's where we go through everything, and I'm going to start revamping some of the rewards so it'll be more valuable to the people that support us there too.
Groovy. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, Björgvin. I will see you, and you do indeed rock.
Thank you very much. It's been great. It's been great.
All right, cheers, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help reach more people. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And if you want more free content, all you have to do is text RS Rockstars to 33444. Again, that's RS Rockstars to 33444, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, and podcast updates. And I'll let you know about any upcoming giveaway offers, all totally free. Thanks for listening. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.